So yeah, whoever said that probably needs to really think about what it might look like if they didn't plan.
Yeah. So the difference is that in traditional working, the planning was centralized in an elite group. The project manager, maybe the program manager, the BA, and a group of elite planners went off and planned it and came back and presented it to the team. And they might spend a long time planning. In Agile, there's more planning, partly because everybody on the team is part of the planning process. It's not an elite group, it's everyone who's doing the work because they are enrolled and engaged in this. And you plan multiple times. Every day, the stand-up meeting is a mini planning meeting where you're talking about what are we going to do today. And then you've got your sprint planning, which is looking at 2 weeks, and you're planning there. And there's some consideration of what comes next. That's the product owners doing some longer term plans. And the planning is happening on a more regular basis. What changes is that instead of a few people staring into the crystal ball and saying the next 5 years will be like this, and they miss a coronavirus happening, everybody is on a regular basis looking a little way into the future.
Yeah, I think where this comes from is that organizations said, oh, we're now agile. And people say, well, Scrum says we don't need any planning. And then what you end up with is developers saying, well, we're working in an agile way and it's going to take us as long as it does. And I think that's where the disconnect occurs between what we're trying to achieve with agile and what actually is going on in terms of people's mindset.
It's a different type of planning, and there's also an acceptance that we don't know a lot of stuff, and a lot of stuff we can't know. And even as a kid, things will change. Who, on the 1st of March, had world pandemic on their project plan? Who had it in contingency?
85% of companies had no contingency plans in place for a COVID virus catastrophe. But I think the key thing here is that what we're saying, Alan, is that the future is uncertain. We've got our epics, we've got our user stories, we've got the kind of work plans laid out, but we don't do it all at once. We don't figure out how we're going to build that bridge over the river, over the Forth. We're basically saying we'll do a bit at a time, and as we learn and as we build, we're going to do more and more planning to the next piece. But we're continually planning. We're not laying out there a kind of set of milestones and hoping. We're saying these are our next set of objectives. This is what we want to achieve.
And to go back to something I said much earlier on, the digital tools we have now are not just an order of magnitude. There's many orders of magnitude more powerful than the tools we had even 10 years ago, let alone 30 or 40 years ago. And it certainly made sense 30 or 40 years ago, when CPU power was very limited, to plan the hell out of everything because CPUs and computers were expensive. Nowadays, the tools are so cheap, you'll waste more time in planning than you will in doing.
But we are talking agile, and we're talking, tech products and things like this. If we're trying to build a bridge, we do need to do some planning, because we kind of know what we're trying to build and what we need, but that's a different model.
I don't build bridges, Tony. I build software.
I know. You build software, and I think that's an important distinction, to say that with software, we can be more agile about things. We can think about what's going to happen. But if we're building a bridge, one of the things we do is we do a lot of drawings up front.
No, Tony.
And that's agile.
I just remember the bridge we both know where that didn't happen. The Hogarth roundabout. That was a temporary bridge erected by Army engineers as a very agile solution. Now, it was 50 years ago, but it's still in use.
Yeah, it's a pretty horrible thing to drive over as well, for those of you who have driven over it. It's a very scary thing that you've got to squeeze your car in through, and then you're looking at it and thinking, I'm not sure how safe and robust this one is. Right, okay.
Tony.
Go on, Sid.
Okay, I think what you were talking about was in the waterfall, back in the waterfall days, if anybody ever remembers them, we used to allow for 1 or 2 crises in our plan.
Yes.
And the other point I would make is about the triple lock, which again you guys touched on, which was the time, cost, and scope.
Quality, yeah.
And also to what quality. Would you want the mini, as we used to say, or do you want the Rolls-Royce solution? Depending on who you are. Now, Alan, this is probably the second grenade I'm going to drop in here.
So hang on, Sid. I think we're just about done with that topic. We've got about another 15 minutes. Do you just want to quickly wrap up on that one, and then we can move on to the... I was going to
very quickly mention about SFAE, Alan.
Oh God, yeah.
I thought you might treat that as another grenade, and the reason why some organisations like it is because it gives the warm fuzzy feeling at the program level, where we still feel like we're in control, where we've got that level 1 plan with the quarterly drops.
Okay. So basic, safe, and just about every other agile method, they present themselves as a price fixed menu. Here's the menu you're going to have it. We'll sign up for that. And what everybody does is they treat it a la carte. And everybody goes to every agile method, Scrum, Safe, Kanban, whatever, and they cherry pick the bit that works.
100%.
Okay, thank you. Right, final question for the afternoon. Stephen, do we need to be more agile than ever before? Just asking for a COVID friend.
Yeah, this really comes from some work we've been doing with the startups in the hub. What was quite clear on, I mean, we've given ourselves 2 dates. And one's pre-COVID, which is March the 1st. And then arbitrarily, we've gone to post-COVID, which was the end of stringent lockdown in the UK of June the 15th. And in looking at that, the interim period, those 3 months, we were looking at how our startups were changing. Many recognised very early on that they had to pivot, they had to do something, and they were very lean, and they were incredibly agile without understanding that they were being agile, and they were looking over what they were doing, and they recognised that their pre-COVID, their pre-March the 1st business plans, canvases, models, financial models, product design, probably didn't amount to very much because they couldn't justify if they were trying to be futuristic from June the 15th. Clearly, some of our startups will survive, probably a lot less than we would have hoped in a pre-COVID world, because many of them didn't and haven't pivoted yet. They're still trying to work out what that means. So really, I mean, I think the question really is, organizations fundamentally have to change for whatever the new world looks like. Is agile the tool to make that happen?
Can I say something there? So I think agile's not your silver bullet to give you a solution to all of this. It is going to be your mindset and your willingness to actually pivot. And actually, there's loads of moments, even in the old waterfall world, where a realization has come to the fore, and then they switched off and switched on something else. A good example of that, and I don't know if you know this story, but Steve Jobs went to visit the Xerox factory, and there he saw the graphical interface. Prior to that, he was building computers that were just text-only, heavy text-based solutions. Having seen that graphical interface, he literally took that risk, shut down what was going on in his own factory, and then reinvented the graphical interface, and the company boomed. So there's a time and a place when you really have no choice but to pivot, and that can work in any world, be that agile, waterfall, or print, whatever it is, whatever world you're in. If you have to pivot, you have to pivot. And I think that's what's happened in this current climate. You've had no choice to pivot, so you've pivoted. Agile actually is probably the best place to pivot, because what you're doing is that because you're working in small chunky deliverables and you're not doing a big bang delivery, you're actually saving yourself lost time, money, and risk. With agile, you reduce your risk and you can deliver faster. So do we need to be more agile than ever before? I think if you think about what consumer behavior looks like, absolutely yes, because they want things like that. Instant gratification is a big deal right now, especially with the fact that we're going mobile and everyone wants everything yesterday. You can't wait 18 months to deliver a product anymore, unless it's a bridge. If you're building a bridge, then maybe you'll wait.
if agile is not the solution, I'm not sure what is. So I'm prepared to accept there may be a better solution out there, but I personally don't know what it is. My view on agile has changed in recent years, and I see agile as the process change that accompanies digital technology. As I've said a couple of times, our digital technology is left ahead massively. And if you try working in the old style of working, you don't get the maximum benefits from it. And I think COVID is showing that, because we're all living, look at this call, we're all living on technology all the time. So you want processes that match the digital world. And that's agile. That's the processes we have. It started in software development because software development had the first access to that technology. So I don't think being more agile will hurt. Being less agile, maybe you can overdo it, but I've yet to see. Agile contains a reflective mechanism in Excel. Every so often you stop and you reflect, we do a retrospective and you talk about what could be better. So if you do become over agile, hopefully you would recognize that within the agile process and say, we can throttle back here.
Allan, to be fair to Waterfall, not that there is a manage, deliver in tranches, review at each stage. Are we could still viable, etc., etc. But just coming to the point that I think where agile helps in, I could talk from larger corporations, but maybe not from smaller, is that it will amplify the problems in your team. We have a saying in project management: if there's a problem with the team, change the team. Right? So, and I suppose, it will amplify and show you very quickly the failings that you may have as an organization. You may not have the right people, the right skill set. And I think that may show you a lot quicker than other methods.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the great thing about agile, is it actually brings issues to the surface very quickly. And actually, I'm just going to pivot back. Sorry, just go back to the Kanban board setup. Have a separate one for your technical debt and your bugs and whatever. It's great how agile makes you be. What am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is agile helps you become more transparent, more honest, more brutal about the truth. And that can be really hard to begin with. Especially if you're within an organization and you're teaching them and bringing to the surface their key issues, they want to bury their heads in the sand.
With agile, things can look worse before they look better, because first of all, you see all these problems, you go, oh my God, let's fall back to the old world, put our head in the sand, kick them into the long grass till testing happens.
Yeah.
But it's a good question. I really like that question. Do we need to be more agile than ever before? I mean, I think for me, whenever the point at which I was introduced to agile, I've never looked back. No. This is like, I even plan my barbecues using Canva.
Not going quite that far, but there is a whiteboard in the kitchen. I think something Stephen said before, I think smaller companies are naturally more agile. And I think a lot of the agile movement is actually about taking practices that work in the small and saying, how can we make these work for large organizations? How can we get the benefits of the small in those larger companies that need something other than just living by the seat of the pants?
If you break it down, I think it really makes a huge difference. Just like we break the work down in our agile ways of working, if you break down the organization, I think there's also value to be added there as well.
So I have this, I guess you call it a meme, to use kids speak these days. We're all used to economies of scale. You go into a supermarket to buy milk, and you expect 4 pints of milk to be cheaper than 4 1-pint cartons of milk. And that's true in milk, and it's true in car manufacturing, a lot of other places. But in technology, in software development, it is not true. It is certainly true once you build the thing and you put it onto an Amazon server somewhere. When you're building something, you want to go small. Going large, getting a larger team, doing larger pieces of work, delaying your releases, doing bigger test cycles. bigger is more expensive per unit of work. Whenever you can, run to small. Break down your work into smaller chunks. Do smaller releases, smaller development cycles. When you hit the problem, get smaller.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Allan, thanks Sheetal. Sid, did you want to have a last point on that, because we're just about out of time?
I just wanted to touch on Alan's point there. I was on another call the other day about the future of quants in the city, and it's again people doing more, so smaller teams, but the teams having a wider skill set to do more and carry the load between each other. And I suppose small companies naturally have that, where it's, you know, it's not such a hierarchical thing. The other point I wanted to make was it's very important for the health of the team to have the one-to-ones. We used to have a bunny status in the team, like I want to die in a ditch to I want to go and, you know, dance in the streets or something like that. But it's very important to have those meetings with your staff still. Make sure that they're okay.
I think retrospectives are very powerful from that perspective.
No, this is separate one-to-ones.
Yeah. So we're done in terms of that topic. Thank you very much, Stephen. Did you have any thoughts on the feedback from our panel on your question?
No, I think I mean, your direction is very clear, and I'm grateful for it. I agree. The fundamental thing is, when you face with a problem, get as small as you possibly can. I think that's absolutely fundamental, and it's so easy to be distracted by the noise around, and there's always somebody else's agenda. But if you have a problem, make it you get to the fundamental smallness of it. It's like my remark about Malbec. If there's a problem, you can only get proper Malbec from France because it was the Argentinians that received the rootstock from the French. So the real Malbec is in France. You get it back to basics.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Sheetal, Allan, and Sid, for your time and for your expertise and your wealth of knowledge on this topic. Stephen, do you want to make a few closing remarks?
No, I'm just very grateful for the talent on this on my screen, for your insight, for your vision, and for your certainly in your brain agitation for me. We're, you know, as a hub, we're a startup, and we're going through this same process. And agile is something. Well, I introduced lean from day one, and it's always had to be flexible. And the concept of agile, and certainly we operate as a scrum. We do scrum, and you're absolutely right. You have to plan a scrum, because if you don't, well, you end up with a flanker going in all directions. So there's two mixed metaphors there. You can go with that with you wish. Tony, thank you for organising it. Very useful, incredibly useful. And I've already been clicked on to Amazon to have a look if Alan's book's up there. There are used versions for 17 quid. So it's worth going and having a look. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Thank you for your feedback. So, Sheetal, Allan, Sid, it's down to me to say thanks again for your expertise and your insights into the world of Agile. And we will be sending out some notes after this meeting, along with contact details for the three of you. So, if you have questions, you want further feedback, there'll be email addresses available. But once again, thanks very much for your time, everybody, and take care and enjoy the rest of the sunny day.
Bye. See you, Alan. See you.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.